File select.
Yo, this game sucks ass. So if you've been knowing me or watching me for the past couple of years, you know that I'm not exactly favorable towards this game. And if I've been saying I hate modern Sonic this much for a long time, I think it's no surprise that I think Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the worst Sonic games I've ever played. And usually whenever I see folk talk about this game, it's almost always in a positive light, or how this is one of the best adventure titles. I mean, there's up to 1 hour long analysis videos singing its praises, and even if sometimes I don't agree with people's opinions, maybe they see something that I don't in the games I don't like. But this time I'm just looking at the screen like, bitch, what? This is straight up one of the hardest videos for me to write for because I have to write down my thoughts in a cohesive manner without getting all heated. And some of the issues with this game are so basic. The first time I played the game all the years back, I already see the issues with the game, and people who don't know anything about Sonic in general, they already see issues with the game. So I'm gonna stop bickering and let's get to the act. So for this part, I'll be criticizing the story as we go on through. I won't be doing any meanly jabs or any stupid memes. Okay, I'm lying. I'll save my criticism once I finish the summarization in a cohesive manner because god, this story is really confusing to put into one big ass story. The story begins with Eggman infiltrating the prison island in search of the ultimate life form, or also known as Project Shadow, created by his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. He finds the weapon inside a capsule, and by using a Chaos Emerald and the password Maria, the weapon inside was actually Black Hedgehog. He mistakes it for Sonic and nearly fights him. Shadow ends up destroying that big military machine and tells the Doctor to bring him more Chaos Emeralds and to meet him on the Space Colony Arc. Shadow introduces what the hell a Space Colony Arc is and shows him by inserting 1 Chaos Emerald you can power up this whole big ass cannon. The Eclipse Cannon, to be exact. This thing can blow up a whole planet if it's powered up by the 7 Chaos Emerald. Rouge overhears their conversation in the arc about how it works, and she offers to help out the 2 villains, I guess. She actually doesn't want to help them, and she has more intentions to find more information on Project Shadow as she works for the United States government, aka Gun. Meanwhile, back in San Francisco, Sonic is seen escaping from a military helicopter after he was arrested. Arrested for what? Stealing. He was accused of stealing despite the fact that the hedgehog is very obviously black. Some mate right here. Sonic encounters Shadow while escaping from the military in the city, where he shows him what exactly Chaos Control is. Ability to stop time with the power of a Chaos Emerald. Sonic is spotted again because he was seen raiding Capitol Hill, and later gets arrested and sent to Alcatraz. All our villains over here are gonna plan on stealing the whole Chaos Emerald and blow the island up, Krakatoa style. Next day, Tails comes to Prison Island in search of rescuing Sonic after hearing it from a news report. Amy needs to shoehorn herself into the plot, so she ends up coming out of nowhere and mistakes Shadow for Sonic. Amy ends up getting onto Prison Island, but if you happen to know, she caught a ride with Tails. After breaking out of Prison Island, Sonic ends up encountering Shadow once again. They have a little scuffle with each other, and then he gets informed that the island is about to blow up. Meanwhile, Rouge ends up locking herself inside the safe, but manages to get all the Chaos Emeralds, saving Rouge out of the explosion. Hawaii explodes and Shadow ends up in the city. Shadow ends up having more flashbacks related to seeing Maria on the Space Colony Arc. Maria tells Shadow, well, nothing. That's where the flashback ends. You gotta have that for plot convenience. Eggman ends up giving his big announcement in the city how he wants to take everyone's stock, and ends up taking over every store in the city, and ends up blowing up and shooting the big laser from the Eclipse Cannon into the moon. After his whole Twitter rant, Sonic, Tails, and Amy end up seeing the whole announcement broadcasted all over, and they're now basically all considered wanted criminals. By complete coincidence, they end up running into Knuckles. He sticks around with the rest of her heroes after he finds out Big Bat Tats is with them. Eggman ends up contacting the United States President and orders him to surrender over to the Eggman Empire. If he doesn't comply with his orders, he'll end up having to shoot the laser again into Earth this time. Sonic and Tails end up tracing back the call to the Space Colony Arc while inside the President's limousine, and some others conveniently place space shuttle that leads to the Space Colony Arc inside a random pyramid. Knuckles decides to crash the space shuttle into the Space Colony Arc because he decided not to be part of this plot anymore. I mean, I don't blame him. leaving Sonic, Tails, and Amy having to stop Eggman. Tails ends up developing a fake emerald, but in the meantime, as they were finding out to place it in the Eclipse Cannon, Amy gets kidnapped. Now, this is probably one of my favorite parts within the story. Easily this part with the Eggman's encounter, where he feels like a genuine threat. Eggman threatens to kill Amy if he doesn't trade over the Chaos Emerald. Eggman ends up doing the biggest 4D chess move of all time, and claims that the emerald is fake despite not knowing it. This is probably the biggest gamble that he's ever done, and it pays off, as Tails ends up admitting that the emerald is actually fake, but he never knew this entire time. And since he played that big move, he kills two birds with one stone, with not only having the chance to kill Tails, but also having the chance to kill Sonic at the same time by ejecting him outside. Sonic ends up escaping from the pod and ends up doing chaos control on the fake emerald. Sonic ends up giving his clear model on what he thinks is right. Sonic and Shadow end up discussing their morals while making it impossible to hear with their music playing in the background. While that's going on, Tails and Eggman fight each other, and Eggman ends up losing. While fails to see that Eggman actually ended up taking the final emerald needed for the Eclipse Cannon. Sonic ends up preventing the cannon from actually firing its big laser, so he ends up saving the day in the end. And Knuckles ends up recovering the Master Emerald. Oh yeah, that happened. While Eggman manages to put in the final emerald into the Eclipse Cannon, a video appears of his grandfather Gerald Robotnik in a video, during which it was revealed that the government was trying to actually hide evidence related towards Project Shadow and everyone involved, which explains the death of Maria. Gerald programmed the Ark for it to crash into Earth once all the emeralds are collected, because he knew humanity would destroy each other. The whole video of Gerald's and the final execution is broadcasted all over the world, and it's time for our villains and heroes to come together and stop the Ark. Rouge ends up getting the idea to get the Master Emerald to stop all the Chaos Emeralds on the Ark. And now all the crew decides to work together to actually stop the Ark from crashing. Except for Shadow, as he thinks his mission is complete. Amy ends up convincing Shadow to actually give humanity a second chance, and Shadow ends up conveniently getting his memory back about Maria, saying that instead of actually destroying all of humanity, it's actually to benefit all of mankind. Sonic and Knuckles end up reaching the cannon's core, and suddenly Biolante's retarded cousin ends up coming in, prototype to the ultimate life form, the Bio-Lizard. And Gearus and Biolante's deformed baby end up merging with the space colony Ark so it can stay on its course towards Earth. Sonic and Shadow end up turning into Super Saiyans and end up stopping Anguirus and Biolante's deformed retarded baby. The two Super Saiyans end up forming their power together and end up doing this big chaos control into the space colony Ark and end up pushing it way further back. But since Shadow was actually never able to harness his super form before, he ends up dying because of reasons. His mission and promise to Maria complete. Everyone reminisces about what just happened and the game ends. That certainly was a story. A few criticisms to say when it comes to this one. There's so much detail that's missing throughout this whole story that could easily improve it, such as, I want to know more about Eggman's motives when it came to being exactly like his grandfather since he looked up to him. The story would have been a lot more fleshed out and interesting if we gave Eggman's thoughts when it came to Maria. It's been stated that they're both cousins. I think it could have at least helped out in some way with his story. There's still quite a bit of plot holes to notice when it comes to this story. Actually, there's quite a few. First plot hole is what exactly was Rouge looking for. The story gives a vague answer and is never clear why the fuck she wants to help out the villains here. 2. How the hell did Shadow come up with the conclusion that Maria told him to seek revenge on all of humanity? He knows how Maria's behavior is, and if he thought logically he wouldn't have to come up with that conclusion. And nothing in these flashbacks allude to any of that either. Yeah, his memory is hazy for sure, but why blame everyone else for the cause of Maria's death instead of the specific gun soldiers that did it? 3. Why do they need a spaceship? There's a teleporter in the control room where you can easily get from the pyramid to the space colony Ark, and having this around is incredibly redundant. I understand this is the same idiot that ended up making a big switch into flying battery that ends up crashing the ship, that still makes zero sense to why the rocket ship is actually still there.
What are you talking about? You trying to drop knowledge. What are you talking about? Drop a mixtape.
How does Sonic know chaos control from the fake emerald? Because he's only seen Shadow do it beforehand, and even then, the emerald is fake and isn't as powerful as the real emerald, and something about him managing to do it without any prior experience just seems like a big pull. 5. If the government knew that this was a big planet destroyer, why didn't they get rid of the Ark, especially after 50 years? If the military funded all of Gerald's research, why did they pull the plug on it now instead of earlier when they knew what he was making? The game doesn't elaborate any further. There's a lot of moments in this game where the game just struggles to elaborate on certain things that could easily improve this story, and it baffles me that people consider that this is the best Sonic plot, when there's so many plot holes that don't really answer questions that get brought up. Okay, I just went through the whole story. I guess it's time to go over the... So if the story ain't as good as people make it out to be, is the gameplay any better? No. The gameplay makes me age faster than Chris Brown died and stomped the yard. Okay, actually, let me run that back a bit.
Follow the light. The light is your guide. I'm controller of planet X. And I've invited you here to discuss something that's very important. King Ghidorah.
So for this portion, I'll be going over each individual level in order, but I'll be splitting it up into each separate character. So Sonic and Shadow get their own section, Tails and Eggman get their own section, and Knuckles and Rouge get their own section. So I'm going to go over Sonic and Shadow first. So the game starts off with an extremely iconic level, City Escape. Some of the problems I have with this game start to show up even within this level. These levels are too linear, especially for something like Sonic. I'm going to be bringing up Angel Island and Emerald Coast as a comparison for these two. Within Angel Island, there's multiple routes that give you a bunch of goodies, mostly rings but also elemental shields and special stage rings. For Emerald Coast, it's mostly a secret hidden route that makes the level go faster, or it's just a bunch of rings and lives. For Adventure 2, nothing. There's like one part in the level where you can get a Chow Garden key, but other than that, there's nothing else really. And in other games, there's a sense of openness when it comes to these levels. Sure, they're linear, but there's at least something here to provide for exploring. For this one, there isn't much really. And Sonic feels much more tighter, almost to its detriment compared to Sonic 3 and Sonic Adventure, and even the games afterwards, Sonic Heroes. And there's also half the time where there isn't any actual physics involved within this level. It's mostly speed panels, which this game likes a lot. I think the only thing this level introduces really well is the rail grinding. We're not really off to a great start, are we? Next level is Metal Harbor. It's another spectacle-based level, yeah. This level introduces one of the biggest problems this game has, the Lightspeed Dash. The Lightspeed Dash was pretty good in Adventure 1, but my only issue with it being was that the charge time was a bit too long, even with the Crystal Ring upgrade. So the Lightspeed Dash is instant. What's the catch here? It's mapped to the same button as rolling and spin dashing. This is where the biggest issue of Sonic's gameplay comes in. Everything is mapped to the same button. So that means the Lightspeed Dash, the bounce bracelet, and the roll are all mapped to the same button. And there's been many instances with this where I end up rolling off the stage, or if I want to get more extra score points, I end up jumping and end up doing a bounce bracelet off instead of doing the Lightspeed Dash, which was what I intended. So half of the time there's going to be deaths that weren't even my fault. I actually quite remember a lot from this level, mainly the rocket ship part and the beginning part where you do the thing with the homing attack. Not very fun though. Green Forest is the next level. With this level you're racing against the clock, and honestly, this is probably my favorite level so far. It has some of the extra routes done right. There's other different areas to actually explore in, even if it's incredibly linear. The multiple paths actually lead to different paths instead of reaching to the exact same area as before, such as in City Escape. Only complaint I really have here is that loops are incredibly automated. What happened here? This level is incredibly linear for no reason. Like, straight line linear. Like the stuff we made fun of Sonic Forces for. This level is incredibly straightforward, and it's not fun either. This is probably one of the worst Sonic levels of all time. Oh my god, what happened here? The anti-gravity is genuinely terrible. I didn't like it in Death Egg Zone, and I certainly don't like it here. Final Rush is probably the second best level. There's multiple branching paths that lead to certain goodies, but these multiple paths actually take you to different spots on a level. Rail grinding is incredibly exhilarating in this game, and it certainly is here. Radical Highway feels incredibly automated, as it's mostly cinematic stuff. I'm trying to remember all the cinematic stuff, but the level here is just barely anything here. Again, it feels really automated. White Jungle is probably the best Shadow level. Same deal as Sonic Green Forest, but it applies here as well. Too bad it introduces the Lightspeed Dash in this level. Skyrail is a fine level, but the thing is it's mostly rail, so you don't really have to do anything. It feels incredibly automated as before. Final Rush, but entirely linear. So now that we got Sonic and Shadows out of the way, why don't we actually do the other two that I hate more than these. Fun. This was the part of the game I was probably dreading the most. Tails and Eggman's gameplay is generally some of the worst I've ever seen. Let me elaborate. The first Tails level is Prison Lane. This is where the issues start to show up. This one is more incredibly mindless, and this one rewards you by having to shoot everything in sight. It's a downgrade of Gamma's gameplay because, well, the tank control's way worse in every single way. And with this level, there's hardly any challenge. All you have to do is just shoot everything in sight. It was being mindlessly boring. Mission Street. This one's just as boring, but it's much more cinematic. Nothing too special here. Besides the fact that there's unavoidable bombs that come in from the sky. Really punishing to get hit by them. Especially the fact that you have a health bar that's really hard to generate with just rings. For probably the worst gameplay styles in this game, the go-kart. Now, the reason why this is probably the worst one is because the way this controls accelerate and drift, you know, as expected within a typical go-kart racer. There's a problem here. Drifting requires you to let go of the accelerate button, and if you want to not lose your speed, you have to keep on going, under a pretty strict time limit. Tails level within this game. The reason why I say this is because this level is incredibly strict when it comes to its platforming, because there's no way to readjust yourself, and if you hit a wall 10 times faster than you already are, leading to a bunch of unfair deaths. The worst Tails level. So, you know how the game's been teaching you to mindlessly shoot at everything the entire time? Yeah, let's just suddenly go against that. Because if you shoot everything, you'll end up taking a lot of damage, either because of these bombs right here in the level, or you end up getting sucked out of the airlock. Iron Gate, it's similar issues with Prison Lane. I don't really got much to explain here. Sand Ocean actually ain't that bad. It just has the same issues as Hidden Base, but it's slightly more easier and way less punishing. I played this game on the original Dreamcast since I didn't feel like using the HD version, and my god, it is impossible to see where I'm actually going here, leading to a bunch of deaths that weren't my fault because I couldn't see what was ahead of me. Cosmic Wall was probably the best level that Eggman provided. I'm saying this because, well, it's not that bad. There's actual platforming challenge here, and because of the anti-gravity, you can actually float yourself a little bit, so making the level is much more easier, and for a last level, it's not that bad. I enjoyed myself here. This is like a genuine upgrade of Gamma's style of gameplay. So for this part, I'm not really going to explain much when it comes to these levels since I basically have the exact same issues with these. I'll bring up specific levels when I feel like I need to. In Adventure 1, Knuckles was a bit more confined with these levels, because they had to be reused from previous other levels. And for Rouge, her levels are much more gimmicky, or at least there's a catch to these levels. For example, in Dry Lagoon, there's a big underwater section. In Security Hall, you're under a massive strict time limit. Or in Mad Space, you're in this big, empty, open area that's really annoying to navigate through, and it's generally one of the worst levels I've ever seen. For Knuckles' first two levels, Wild Canyon and Pumpkin Hill, it feels like there's randomly placed geometry all over the place. Especially in something like Wild Canyon, where this is the biggest case. And for Pumpkin Hill, it's just way too big. That's probably another point I should bring up. Some of these levels are actually way too big. Like, way too big. Like, you gotta dial it back. The best example I could bring up of this is Meteor Herd, Pumpkin Hill, and Death Chamber. However, Death Chamber is a much more confusing level. Feels like a maze. And honestly, that's probably the biggest thing that this game does when it comes to its gameplay. It tries to fix what wasn't broken, instead of fixing the things that actually needed fixing. One of the massive things that needed fixing when it came to its different gameplay styles is having original levels can either A, make a level be more memorable since it's stuck with one character, or B, makes it much more easier to design it since you're sticking it with one character. But I decided to go the extra mile and ruin some things. One of the biggest things I notice is when it comes to the tank controls and Knuckles' gameplay style. The tank controls because it's much worse than what Gamma was, and I decided to make the radar much smaller with Knuckles. Oh yeah, the Chow Garden. I'm very impatient when it comes to this kind of gameplay style, it's just ain't for me. So why don't we go over the stuff I actually like when it comes to this game. I think this is probably one of the best soundtracks we've gotten in the entire franchise. Track after track is a banger no matter which joint you pick up on. While the lyrics are sure corny as hell with Knuckles' levels, but the instrumentals are some of my favorites I've ever heard within the entire series. I also love some of the jazzy themes that we get with Rouge's levels. What you've heard about this series when it comes to its music is almost always from this game, and I cannot undermine it here. But it's almost a given. Everyone loves the music within this game. But there's something that I actually love a lot more. And it's something that I never thought I'd ever say about this game. I've been glossing over the last story as if it's nothing too much, but I wanted to save it for its own part as it's one thing I want to give praise to that I don't see enough of. Let me recap for a second. All of the heroes and villains are coming together to stop the space colony Ark from crashing into the Earth. And as they all are coming together, we probably get one of the best levels in this entire game, Cannon's Core. Everyone's section is so fun to play as, except Tails. This kid can't catch a break. And after playing through every single character with this, I can say that I had a great time with this one. My personal favorites being Eggman and Rouge. And the tone of this is set real well, which is this long drawn out fight with this stupid lizard thing. Then you fight it again as Super Saiyans with the final hazard, and it's alright, I guess. Most Sonic final bosses tend to be like that, they just tend to be alright. And you get possibly one of my most favorite scenes within the entire franchise. The characters all reminisce of what just happened because they all witnessed Shadow die for the sake of everyone, with his promise to help out mankind being complete. Along with the characters reminiscing of this scene, it ends up playing this beautiful piano piece that I can't help but like. And it's melancholic but reassuring at the same time because everyone's okay, but that there had to be sacrifices made in order to get where they are now. My favorite parts of the scene being Eggman talking about how he looked up to his grandfather.
幼いわしにとってじいさんはまさにヒーローじゃった。子供心にいつかはじいさんのような科学者になることを夢見たもんじゃ。じゃあな、じいさんは本気でわしらを滅ぼしたかったんじゃろうか。
さあね、ただ言えることは僕たちはやったってことだよ。
そうじゃな。
And the other one was Sonic trying to keep his composure about witnessing Shadow just die right there because he didn't know how to keep his super form, and seeing if he really was the ultimate life form. And this is what I wanted to see more throughout the game, because I want to hear the characters' thoughts of what they're going through with this, since it seems to be affecting everyone. And I just want to go over through the music one last time. And with that final line,
Adios,
sayonara, Shadow the
the
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog.
Setting the tone is one thing, but keeping that tone is incredibly important too. Too bad the game's over, and then this somber scene gets interrupted by Johnny Gioli singing. No disrespect, of course. Did that ruin the moment? Sorry, bro, I don't know what you expect from me. I stopped caring about this 6 hours ago, bro. Alright, so I might as well talk about where my hatred came from towards this game. This was my first awakening to realize that maybe I should come up with my own opinions. This was at the turn of the decade where everyone was sort of spouting their opinions when it came to reviews on YouTube, and young, naive me decided to believe every single one of it, since at the time Adventure 2 was one of the games I actually never grew up playing. So around 2013 when I got my hands on a copy for the Dreamcast, and when I actually started to play it, the smile on my face went away so quickly. And all that I feel towards this game is bitterness. I know that sounds real stupid to feel bitterness towards a game, but it's true. I was so severely disappointed to find out that this game was genuinely not very good. Like, imagine being me, being so disappointed after all these years that this game isn't actually that good. And imagine being me now, to where I don't even like this game at all, to where I consider it one of my least favorite games of all time. I thought this game was going to be better when I get older, and appreciate the stuff I found. But I think it got worse. I think it got way worse. Basically what I'm trying to get at for this whole video is come up with your own opinions, bro, for real. Like, I don't gotta explain further more on this. This is probably one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. And unlike Sonic Colors, to prove Sonic Twitter wrong again because this game is actually still pretty good, doing the same for Sonic Adventure 2 honestly made it worse. Like a whole lot worse. A plot that doesn't answer its questions it brings up with too many plot holes to fill in, along with some of the worst gameplay this franchise has ever brought up. That plays worse than a game that came out 2 years prior and another game that came out all the way back in 1994. This game is just straight up not good. And I know I've been saying that for the past however long this video is gonna be, and I know there's gonna be people that are gonna get mad at me, but I stopped caring about that once I finished this video. I just want to get this video out, bruh. My hatred towards this game should not really affect anyone else's enjoyment. These past couple of videos were always meant to judge the current consensus of these Sonic games, because the consensus I've been hearing for some of these games is either incredibly misleading or just straight up untrue. If you ask me why do I play these games if I hate most of them, because I love Sonic and I love talking about it, because I want this series to be better. And when this is coming from the same studio that has given me great games such as Sonic Adventure and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I kinda got a right to be mad about that when it is a step back in almost every single way. And this franchise is still in dire need of improvement and change. You know, if I can pull up and talk all this smack when it comes to one of the most beloved Sonic games of all time, then I feel like anyone should really come up and talk about whatever they like in any way they like. Just, don't be stupid about it. Nah, but who am I kidding? If you're bad at the game, you can't criticize it. Am I right, boys?
There's a facial